All right, so tonight I'm going to be talking about archaeological monitoring 101, just kind of a quick overview of what we do when we do archaeological monitoring. Because if you're working in CRM, chances are at some point you're going to have to do some monitoring, for better or for worse, usually for better. I'm Julia Kunis. I work for Willamette CRA as an archaeologist. I've been working in CRM since 2017. And I've been mostly monitoring with some surveys and other stuff thrown in probably for the past 3 years. So I'm not a complete expert. I know there's some other archaeologists here that have done a lot more monitoring than me, but I've seen at least a decent amount. I've done a decent amount of monitoring. So first of all, what is monitoring? Kind of in a nutshell, monitoring is watching construction, ground disturbing activities to look for cultural materials and archaeology, or to see if there is no archaeology. Sometimes that can also include recording the sediments that you see there and other site conditions, and sometimes just recording the day's events as they happen. And the things you can monitor vary a lot. One of the biggest things that you end up doing in monitoring is watching mass excavation, kind of like what's going on in this photo here, where they're digging into a bunch of dirt. But it can really vary. Ground disturbing activities cover a lot of things in construction sites. For example, this is another picture of monitoring I did a few weeks ago where they're putting in a silt fence, which is to prevent erosion. Basically, I got to watch them hand dig this little trench here, which can be kind of awkward, but you got to do it depending on the project. You also, I don't know if you guys can see this picture in the corner. You also might monitor some geoboring, geotechnical drilling, where they'll drill down usually to pretty deep depths and pull out cores with sediment in them that they crack open to look like this. So basically the only thing you're really seeing are these cores that they pull out. You might also watch the new potholing, which you may have seen people or these trucks driving around. They're pretty common. Basically, it's like a giant vacuum that they suck up from the ground to find utilities, or if it's too sensitive of an area to do regular digging, they'll sometimes pothole like around light posts and stuff. You might also do more soil analysis, like this photo is me here doing looking at the profiles of a trench wall that we did on a construction project to kind of look for archaeology, but also understand the soils in the area before they did mass excavation. So it really varies a lot. It can also vary depending on the project. You might be on site while they're working for all ground disturbing activity, or you might only be on call. Like if they see something, they'll call you up and you have to go out and check it out. Or check in, like you show up once a week or something to see what's going on. So it really depends on the project. So why are we doing a monitoring training? The biggest thing is safety. Not everyone has spent a lot of time on construction sites or knows that much about it. I kind of knew a little bit about construction, like really basic stuff when I started monitoring. But they can be dangerous places, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And I feel like I know a lot of people who started out in monitoring who really weren't taught anything before. They were just kind of shoved on a construction site and told good luck, you know, not really even told good luck, just expected to do their job. You can't really do your job well if you don't know what to do when you're on a construction site and you don't know what's expected of you. So hoping this is helpful to you guys if you end up doing some monitoring in the future. So first of all, what you need, the biggest thing when you're monitoring is PPE, which is personal protection equipment. And the PPE required at each site kind of varies depending on the job site. But just the kind of general things that you'll need are a safety vest, hard hat, which is a must if you're working around heavy machinery, especially. Gloves, safety toe boots, safety glasses, and earplugs. You can see here, this is Brianne, one of our archaeologists, wearing like hot weather gear with her nice little sun visor, which I just started using one of those. They may not look super cool, but they're really nice, so highly recommend. And then this on the right is me in my rain gear, my high-vis rain pants. If you're working in the Pacific Northwest doing monitoring, you're probably going to want to get rain gear at some point. So keep that in mind. And then kind of a continuation of the things you'll need while monitoring. The things you must have are a way to take notes. Some companies will have a monitoring form that they have you fill out for each day. Other companies have you take notes on an app like Collector. It kind of depends between companies. I've done both. But personally, I like to have a Write in the Rain journal with me just to take notes throughout the day, just stream of consciousness or as things happen, so that once you sit down at the end of the day, you want to write up your nice notes or you're about to text your supervisor, you have something that you can refer to that might not be the neatest looking, but it's a good thing to refer back to. Cell phone, obviously you'll need a cell phone to contact your supervisor or anyone else in the job site if necessary. A nice photo scale, Tom talked about that in his presentation a couple of weeks ago. There is a scale in the back of the Right of the Reins, but that's not really ideal for photos of bones and that kind of thing if you really find something that needs to be checked out. And then a drink and a snack, always important, especially staying hydrated no matter what. Sometimes there will be water available to you at a construction site, but just kind of assume that you have to bring everything you need. So definitely something to keep in mind. Then optional, I always like to have one of those little phone chargers with me just in case my phone dies. A trowel is always good to have. Shovel, one of those sharpshooter, smaller flat shovels, keep with you. Kind of depends on the project, but that can be helpful to scrape off surfaces. Lunch, some construction crews don't take lunch, which I didn't know the first time I was on a project where a crew did that. I was really concerned and not happy about it. But if your car is not nearby and you know that they're not taking lunch, have the lunch with you, because you never know if you'll be able to get a break, and it's not good to be standing around monitoring on an empty stomach. And then a book. Monitoring can be really boring sometimes, and you don't want to be using up all your phone data if you have some downtime. So highly recommend bringing a book as well. Oh, and one other thing that I thought of, sunscreen, especially now, but even in the winter, the sun can get really bright, and you just always want to have that with you because you're probably going to be standing out in the sun at some point. All right, so typical day monitoring, just kind of in general how things tend to go. Before you even show up the day of, make sure that you know the full plan of what's expected to happen from your supervisor, and where to park is a big one. Sometimes you can show up to construction site and there's seemingly nowhere to park, or the crew is parking like 2 blocks away or something. And they don't really like, especially if you're using your personal vehicle, that you just roll in the site because they don't really know that you're supposed to be there. So make sure that you get parking information lined up. So the day of, show up with all your PPE on, ready to go. Check in to confirm your plans. So you should get the information or the name of the foreman or a contact on the construction crew to meet up with or check in with. Give them a call to see, hey, are you guys still digging? Where should I go? Sometimes it's hard to track these guys down. A lot of times I've showed up asking for the foreman, and they're like, oh yeah, it's the guy in the blue hard hat, and 6 of them have blue hard hats. But it's awkward, but you have to just figure out who they are, track them down, and figure out what's going on. So once you figure out what's going on with the foreman or whoever's in charge, you meet up with the operator or the diggers, whoever's doing the ground disturbing activity. Usually I'll go up to the operator or whoever and say, hi, I'm the archaeologist, my name's Julia. Usually I just say something like, I have to watch you dig. I'm just gonna keep an eye out for anything cultural or old. I'll wave you down if I need to take a look at anything. And most of the construction workers I've worked with before know the drill. They've worked with archaeologists out here before. So it's not a whole new thing, but just give them a rundown so they know you're not some random person who's standing in their way. Once you've done all that, it's time to actually do monitoring. So once you are monitoring, basically you can stand there and watch them do their ground disturbing activities. You need to be able to see them dig or doing whatever they're doing. You can see the spoils. You need to check out the spoils, which is the dirt they're taking out, to see if there's anything in that. While you're monitoring, take photos, lots of field photos, take notes. When I take my notes, I like to kind of do like timestamps, like at 8:30 they started digging, at 9:15 they took a break. Keep it short and sweet and to the point. Record the sediment. If you see anything that looks like different layers, if it looks like fill, point that out. And if you see anything that could be cultural, even if you see like modern trash, make a note of that. But just your general observations. And throughout the day, I like to check in with my supervisor, usually by sending them a text like, oh, looks like they might be wrapping up soon, or oh, they're about to shift to this area, just to keep them in the loop. Because they're not out there, you're the one on the construction site seeing what's going on, so you need to be able to communicate with them so that they know what's going on as well. So once they're done digging for the day, confirm that they are completely done digging. Sometimes they like the construction workers have something else that calls them away. They have to go fix some equipment on the other side of the site, or they have to go have a social hour somewhere. But if it looks like they're packing up, sometimes crews are really good about saying like, we're done for the day, you can go, but other times they'll just kind of roll out. So wave them down, be like, are you guys all done? Are you not doing any more digging? If they say yes, then be like, okay, I'm out of here then. Just make sure that you confirm before you walk off the site, because they may be back and then they might start digging again and you won't be there. So once they're all done digging, confirmed all done, if your company uses a GPS program like Collector to record information on monitoring, take the GPS points. It's, in my experience, it's safer to wait until the end to do that kind of thing. Once they're done, all the equipment's out of the way. Finish up your notes so it's fresh in your mind. You've got your nice, beautiful notes. You don't have to work on them at home when you're all tired and ready to sit on your couch. And then lastly, before you take off, check in with your supervisor, kind of give them a general rundown of what you saw, what they did, any changes in sediment from other things that they've seen on the site before. And it's also a safety thing too, so that they know that you're leaving the site, you're not in a hole or something. So. Okay, so the biggest thing, in my opinion, about monitoring is keeping an eye out for safety. In general, a lot of construction companies and projects will preach safety, but these projects have people that are under a lot of pressure, a lot of time constraints. There's a lot of money involved, so they're not always looking out for the little archaeologist who's just trying to do their job. So you have to kind of look out for yourself. So the biggest thing is to be alert when you're walking around the construction site. A lot of times there can be like multiple machines running around, trucks going in and out, contractors driving around in their pickup trucks. Like it can be really crazy. So when you're walking around a site around machinery, make sure when you walk by a machine, you make eye contact with the operator, just kind of wave, maybe point the direction you're going to so that they see where you are. Don't walk around on your phone, don't have earbuds in. You know, it's kind of tempting to check your phone when you're walking around, but there can be rocks in your way, there can be machines whipping around the corner, and you really need to be keeping an eye on what's going on. Also, don't run around the site unless it's like an absolute emergency. It kind of freaks people out when they see people like sprinting around construction sites, and there's no need for that. And it's dangerous, so. One of the big things that I've learned about, especially in the past couple of years, is how to work with equipment operators, like in the machines like this, which can be like backhoes, track hoes, excavators. They have all kinds of different names. So the biggest thing, since we'll probably be working with people working in these a lot, is to know where they can and can't see you. So in this picture, you can kind of see Hopefully you can see my mouse. The operator can see straight ahead of them really easily, and they can see to their left really easily, but that's kind of it. They've got mirrors that kind of show behind and to the other side, but those they're not foolproof. So when you're walking around an operator, if you can, always walk around their left side so they see you coming up to their side. Usually when they're trying to dig, their swing radius is what it's called. They should be digging and turning to the left so they can see where they're turning. Sometimes it doesn't always work like that. Depending on like their constraints of the site, they might be turning to the right, but usually if they're a good operator, they should be turning to the left so they can see you. But just keep an eye on like how the operator is turning, if they're being consistent, moving that way. Some operators are good, some are not so good. So you just have to assume that they're bad until you see that they're doing a good job and you can kind of trust how they're moving. But in general, don't stand behind them. They can't see anything behind them and they can like start backing up at a moment's notice. Don't walk under their bucket or anything like that, because things can fall out of it. And let's see. When I'm working with an operator, if I can, I feel like the best visibility is standing like directly opposite them. So not only can you make good eye contact with them, you can kind of get a good look looking down at the excavation. Sometimes, depending on the way they're digging or what they're doing, that's not always possible, but usually when you're watching them dig, just pick a spot where you have good visibility and stay there. Don't like keep moving around because that's not safe, and it's better for you and better for the operator if they know where you're going to be. Operators usually have a spotter or a laborer working with them who kind of keeps an eye out for them if they hit any utilities or dig up anything that looks like something they wouldn't want to hit. So sometimes we'll have a helper with them that you can kind of chat with and ask questions to, but that's not always the case. And then another thing is that since we're watching ground disturbing activity, sometimes we'll be around deep excavations. So this one right here is a stormwater excavation I was watching last week that was 13 feet deep. So working around deep excavations can be really dangerous. So according to OSHA, I believe it's people can't get into trenches deeper than 4 feet without shoring. And shoring is stuff like these trench boxes here that keep the walls from collapsing. But even with shoring, I would not recommend getting into a 13-foot deep trench. It's not really necessary for safety unless you've cleared it with your supervisor and you've gone over safety training for that kind of depth. It's really not, I wouldn't do it. And when you're working your deep excavations like this, I would stay as far away from the edge as possible because some of these trenches and trench walls can collapse quicker than you can even realize. Like this guy here to the right is standing way closer than I would be comfortable with. So just keep an eye out. If it looks like the walls are crumbly or if you see cracks along the edges, just stay way back. Obviously, you need to see what's going on, but you do not want to fall into a trench that deep because it's just not, it's not good. The biggest thing is safety is number one with this kind of thing. Obviously, no one wants anyone to get hurt on a construction site, but the workers might not be keeping that great of an eye on what you're doing, so you need to keep an eye out for yourself. A few other safety considerations that I've experienced on construction sites. Big one is biohazards like needles and other things like that. A lot of construction happens in cities where people are going to be using drugs and that kind of thing. So be really careful if you see needles around. Let your supervisor know that there are needles here. There's a lot of them, especially. It's usually not worth standing around there. I was working on a site in downtown Seattle where it was like a hill basically covered in needles. And I told Chris was my supervisor, and I told him, he's like, yeah, don't go up there anymore. So if it's, yeah, needle, it's not worth getting a disease. Another one, extreme weather conditions. This was what I was standing around in yesterday. Construction crews like to work in extreme conditions, even if it's not safe, even if they're not feeling great. So you have to keep an eye out for yourself. If you're not feeling well, like for example, today it was 90s and I was not feeling too great in the afternoon. So I went and sat in my car with the AC on for a little bit, which obviously isn't an option if there's no AC around. But if you're really not feeling well, you don't want to faint in the middle of the construction site. It's not worth it. Go somewhere where you can rest for a little bit, drink cold water, and make sure you have water with you. Or if it's cold, walk around a little bit, bring hand warmers, that kind of thing. Another issue with monitoring, you will be standing long-term. Usually it is a lot of standing around. It can, for me, it makes my back really stiff at the end of the day. One thing that I've started doing is bringing like a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it to sit on. That way you can keep all your equipment in it, and you can also take a break and sit down for a little bit too. Obviously that's not always practical if you're not able to have a bucket out of the way at a construction site, but that's one option. But also just keeping moving a little bit, doing some stretches really helps a lot. And then another safety consideration, my little city of Seattle, a lot of times you'll be working near the public, which can include people who are homeless, people who are not happy about the construction that's going on, people who aren't paying attention and like to drive through construction sites without looking. So not only do you have to pay attention to the stuff that's going on inside the construction site, but you kind of have to keep an eye out for sometimes unpredictable things that people outside the site can do. And one other thing to mention for safety, so there's 2 trainings that a lot of sites require, or like in companies like you to have. The first one is HAZWOPER, which is Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. So basically it's training for working at sites, a lot of times for like contamination cleanup or other hazardous materials. And those projects require you to have HAZWOPER training. HAZWOPER training is pretty expensive, so I wouldn't recommend that you pay for it on your own, do it on your own. But if you are working for a company and they offer to pay for you to do HAZWOPER training, I would definitely take that chance or take that opportunity. Because it looks good on your resume, and it's always handy to have because then you can work on those projects. And then CPR and first aid training is always a good one to have as well. That one's not as expensive, so if you want to have something to pad your resume out, I would recommend doing that. I think you can do online ones pretty easily, but I'm sure there's in-person ones too. Okay, so already we're in the stock photo section. So what if you're monitoring and you find something, you see something that looks cultural, you see a bunch of bottles fall out of a sidewall, or you see like a building foundation or something that looks like a burnt feature. So a lot of this is dependent on the project and the company you're working for. So the number one thing I would recommend is to get familiar with the project protocols, what you're expected to do on the project, what your supervisor wants, because it can, obviously this is pretty general, but it can depend on the situation. So if you see something while they're digging or while they're working, signal them to stop. Usually I do like wave my hands and kind of point down. I want to go check it out. If it's safe to get in the hole or get in the trench, get as close as you can to take a photo. If it doesn't look safe to get in, just take a photo from above. And then send the photos to your supervisor. And usually I'll send the photos and then give them a call and be like, hey, we just found this, we're here. It's usually pretty helpful to give really detailed location information. So if I say like, I'm on the corner of First and Pine in downtown Seattle, I don't know what's there, but pretend we found something there. They're about 4 feet below surface. They just found a glass bottle deposit, looks to be historic. And then your supervisor will take it from there usually, and you might have to wait, might have to tell the construction crew, okay, I'm waiting to hear the call to see what we need to do. And you'll hear back from your supervisor hopefully soon. And sometimes, depending on what you find, it'll just be a couple photos. And then you can tell them, okay, you're good to go. Thank you for letting me know. You can go back to digging. Other times, if you find something a little bit more significant, it might be a longer process. They might have to stop work for the day, but it depends on the project protocol. And sometimes the crew will not stop digging for you. I've never had that happen to me, but I know, I think Amanda told me that that's happened to her before. If that does happen, don't like jump in front of the machine or anything. It's not worth getting hurt for, but record. In that situation, I would record in your notes everything that's happening. Like at 3:30, I told so-and-so to stop to look at glass bottle feature. He refused to stop. At 3:05, he scooped out the bottles and put them in the spoils pile or something. Just keep a really detailed account and keep your supervisor in the loop to let them know what's going on the site. I'm sure the other archaeologists probably have more to add to that as well. Just a few last things to note. One thing that I think is really important that you don't always get is background information on the project that you're going out on. A lot of times you'll get, especially as a tech, you'll get contacted and be like, oh, we need you to monitor like this site where they're putting in an apartment building, they're going to be digging, and they won't, they're going to be digging like footings or something, and they won't tell you like anything's been found at that site before, what might be found there based on other sites in the area, the kinds of soils you might be looking at, that kind of thing. So if you don't get that kind of information when you're told about a job, don't be afraid to ask the company or your supervisor about that kind of information, because that can only help you do a better job. So, and if you don't get that kind of information, you're just going out there blind. Another important thing is that in construction, schedules change all the time. It's good to just keep a level head, because it can be really infuriating how their schedules change by the second. It feels like sometimes you'll show up the day of and they'll be like, oh, just kidding, we're not doing that today, you can go home. So you'll get like maybe an hour's worth of work. Other times you'll show up and you'll think it's an 8-hour day and it turns out to be a 14-hour day with no lunch. That can happen too. That happened to me. So just be prepared for plans to change. Most of the time they stick to their plans. There might be a few delays throughout the day, but that's why it's good to have a book. But I've been told by construction workers that all the archaeologists that they've encountered in that project are very calm. And I'm like, well, you have to be calm out here, otherwise you'll just completely lose it. So working with construction crews, I'm not sure how many of you maybe have experience with construction or have construction workers in your family or have friends in construction. A lot of people out there will have very differing views on archaeology. Some people are really interested in want to tell you about their arrowhead collection that they have, which is not really something I try to engage with because I don't really want to encourage looting or anything like that, but that is something you get told about a lot. Other people will not want to talk to you at all because they've been on projects where it got postponed 2 months because of archaeology. You get really different views. In my experience, most people have been pretty friendly or at least helpful. At the end of the day, you're all out there to do your job, and everyone knows that. So just remember that, and just if someone complains about it, just be like, I'm just doing my job. You're just doing your job. So that's pretty much it. And as far as interacting with the construction crews, the one thing I would definitely recommend is not to talk politics. It's not worth it. they might bring it up, just be like, oh yeah, I don't know, it's crazy out there, and just leave it at that. You might get people who say racist things or sexist things. It is what it is. If you feel uncomfortable, every supervisor I've worked with doing monitoring has told me, if you feel uncomfortable out there, if anyone is bothering you, let me know, and we will get you out of that situation. I've never had any supervisor who hasn't done anything when I am feeling uncomfortable about a situation. Thankfully, I haven't had anything harassment-wise where I've had to leave a site or anything like that. But in my experience, everyone in the companies around here has had my back, which is really good to know. What else? And then, oh, the one last thing, if you get the opportunity, since I think it's good to just have like me talk at you and tell you stuff about monitoring, what to expect. But when you're on a construction site, it's a whole nother beast, and there's so much going on. So if you get the chance to check out monitoring with someone who's more experienced, like the day that Amanda was talking about, or if you're new to a company and they want you to go out and monitor, let them know, like, hey, I'm really new. Is there a chance I can go out for a half a day or a day with someone more experienced to kind of learn the ropes a little bit? Definitely do that, because it's valuable to get someone to show you around and show you the ropes in person. So highly recommend doing that if you're able to. And that's it.